All right, let's talk about a condition that has one of the most fitting nicknames out there, glaucoma, often called the silent thief of sight. We're going to break down exactly why it's so sneaky and, more importantly, what you can do to stop it in its tracks.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of the problem. You see, in its most common form, glaucoma is completely painless. You don't feel a thing. There are no early symptoms, which means you don't notice your vision is getting worse until some serious, and I mean irreversible damage has already happened.
Just take a second to really let that number sink in. 40%. That is nearly half of your side vision, your peripheral vision, just gone. And you might not even realize it. And that right there is exactly why being aware of this and getting it detected early is so absolutely critical.
So what's actually going on inside the eye? Well, glaucoma isn't just one disease. It's a whole group of them. But they all have one thing in common. They damage the optic nerve. I want you to think of your optic nerve like the high-speed data cable that connects your eye to your brain. When that cable gets damaged, the signal gets interrupted. And that interruption creates permanent blind spots in what you can see.
Okay, so what's causing all this damage? Well, most of the time, the main culprit is high pressure building up inside the eye. And to really get how that works, we're going to use a super simple analogy that makes it all click. I want you to imagine your eye is a tiny little sink. Now, the faucet in this sink is always on, constantly producing a fluid that keeps all the parts of your eye healthy and nourished. Normally, this fluid drains out just as fast as it's made. But in most types of glaucoma, that drain gets clogged up and slow. The faucet, though, it just keeps on running. So what happens? The sink starts to fill up, the pressure builds, and that pressure starts pushing on that delicate data cable, the optic nerve, in the back of the eye, slowly, silently damaging it over time. Now, here's a really important thing to remember. While high eye pressure is, by far, the biggest risk factor, it's not the only thing that matters. Some people can actually get glaucoma even when their eye pressure is totally normal. It's a condition called normal tension glaucoma, and it might be happening because their optic nerve is just a bit more fragile or isn't getting enough blood flow. So it's important to know that glaucoma comes in a couple of different flavors. We're going to focus on the two main types, and trust me, they have completely different personalities. One is slow and silent, the other is sudden and severe. On one side, we've got open-angle glaucoma. This is the big one, making up about 90% of all cases. This is that silent thief we've been talking about, where the drain clogs up super slowly over many, many years. But on the other side, you have angle closure glaucoma. You can think of this one like someone suddenly jamming a plug right into the drain. The pressure skyrockets, causing horrible eye pain, headaches, even nausea. This is a true medical emergency. It can cause permanent vision loss in just a matter of hours if it's not treated.
So who really needs to be on high alert for that common silent type? Well, your risk goes up quite a bit if you're over the age of 40, if you have a family history of glaucoma, if you're of African or Hispanic descent, or if you have other health conditions like diabetes.
Okay, so after all that, here's the really good news. We have gotten incredibly good at finding glaucoma, often years before you would ever notice a problem yourself. So let's take a look at the tools that eye doctors are using to see what you can't.
You know, going to the eye doctor today is so much more than just figuring out if you need glasses. Your doctor has a whole toolkit of amazing, advanced tests specifically designed to spot the absolute earliest signs of nerve damage.
The first and most basic test is called tonometry. This is what measures the pressure inside your eye. You might remember the old air puff test. Well, a lot of clinics now use much gentler devices. A pressure reading over 21 is usually considered a bit of a red flag. That means your doctor will want to take a closer look, but it doesn't automatically mean you have glaucoma.
But it goes way beyond just pressure. Doctors use other key tests too. There's gonioscopy, which lets them use a special lens to look right at that drainage angle to see if it's open or blocked. Then there's the OCT scan. This thing is like an MRI for your eye. It creates these incredibly detailed maps of your optic nerve that can spot damage years before it would ever show up in your vision. And finally, the visual field test. Yeah, it can be a little tedious clicking that button, but it's the gold standard for mapping out any tiny blind spots you might already have. So let's say your doctor does find something. What happens next? This is where the story gets really hopeful, because the treatments we have today are fantastic and incredibly effective at stopping vision loss in its tracks. Now, if you get a glaucoma diagnosis, your mind might immediately go to a lifetime of using daily eye drops. But here's what's so interesting. For a lot of people, that's actually not the first line of defense anymore. Today,
Laser therapy is very often the first treatment doctors recommend. For open-angle glaucoma, there's a quick, in-office procedure called SLT. It uses a really gentle laser to basically wake up your body's own immune cells, which then go in and clean out that clogged drain. It's safe, it's effective, and it's a total game changer because for many people, it means they don't have to use daily eye drops, or at least not as many.
So you can see the modern glaucoma toolbox is pretty diverse. Laser therapy is often the starting point now for mild to moderate cases. Medicated eye drops are still a super important tool for managing pressure day to day. And for those more severe or complex cases, there are some really advanced surgical procedures, including some that implant microscopic drains to help the eye.
And all of this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important takeaway from this entire explainer. Any vision you lose from glaucoma is gone. It's permanent. You cannot get it back. But, and this is a huge but, future vision loss is almost entirely preventable. It all comes down to catching it early and sticking with the treatment.
So, we'll just leave you with this one simple question. The power to save your sight is literally in your hands, and it all starts with one simple action. So, when was your last comprehensive eye exam?